Ethics is really fundamental to the path because it's all about developing skillfulness and how we relate with others and with life. Um, Keeping ethical discipline and the creation of virtue pervades all aspects of the Buddhist path. And it's what makes even Buddhist meditation so progressive beyond just simple mindfulness. And there are lists upon lists of precepts, and there are obvious and common sense codes of ethics and conducts, like we know we shouldn't kill or steal, but I think what Phuntsok will get into is the deeper layers of our relating. And I'm not sure if you saw in the email, he was recently interviewed for a podcast, and he was asked in depth about his life as a monk. And he was talking about how, as a monk, because he was so isolated, it was quite easy for him to be patient and kind and loving. And he realized that in order to master anything, it must be practiced in relationship with others. And he gave an example of how you could be on a deserted planet all by yourself and still be a lousy celibate. So ethics is not this stale concept that we use to govern ourselves and police each other. In Buddhism, it's all about alleviating suffering by way of going beyond our attachment to self, really looking at, really looking to see, can we keep our discipline when we're tired and grumpy, when we're jealous, when we're in the throes of anger or deeply attached? And how do we get there? That seems to be where the real challenge lies. And this is a topic that I feel Phuntsok has really devoted himself to and can speak so extensively and deeply on, probably far more than can fit in this one session. So without further ado, Phuntsok, please.
And again, thank you so much. That was such a beautiful talk. I can't call it just an introduction because it was so rich already. You could say that was part A. Okay. So as always, you know the drill. We do meditation, and then after the meditation, I'll talk. And I really would like to give you an opportunity to. I'm going to try to give you an opportunity to engage and share your thoughts with all of us. Now, the way we used to do when we used to be an in-person gathering, where we actually share, we had the opportunity to look into each other's eyes and share our understanding. So even though this is happening virtually, I really welcome that we continue to do that. Okay. And ethics is every topic that is presented within Buddhism before it is talked about. This is the most important topic ever. And each time any topic is presented and it is said to, this is the most important topic ever, is because every topic is important and every topic is connected to other topics in order to fully understand the other topics. So in a sense, when they're saying this is the most important topic ever, it's more talking, it's more to understand how this particular topic, how it fits with the other topics, to make the other topics have the sense of importance that they do. Okay, so in the fashion of every teacher who has ever taught any topic, I will continue with that topic, with that tradition. This is the most important topic ever. Okay. So really pay attention. You could say, in a sense, if you were to summarize the path, I mean, the Buddha summarized the path. Supposedly there's 84,000 volumes of 84,000 teachings. I'm not sure if it's 84,000 topics of teachings or if it's 84,000 volumes of teachings, but anyway, there's 84,000 of them, and 84,000 is a lot. And the 84,000 can be summarized, and the Buddha summarized it where in the, which sutra? Well, I don't remember exactly the sutra, I'm not gonna, but you can look it up. I'm sure you can find it. It's where the Buddha summarizes the teaching. This is the teaching of all Buddhas, he says. It is to, the very first part of it is be disciplined. Avoid all harming. That's the first of the summary of the path. Avoid all harming. And secondly, to whatever extent you can help. And discipline your mind. And the other two, the first two that were mentioned, they're really about disciplining the mind. Okay. And that's really the summary of every teaching, every dharma, every path that leads to liberation. That is their summary. When I was very interested in just reading sutras, after reading several volumes of sutras, I started to notice a pattern in all those sutras, even though they had different contexts, different presentations. Some of them, they were presenting the same thing, but presenting it in a slightly different way, in an abbreviated way, in an extended way. But the theme with all the sutras has to do with behavior. How are you behaving? And understanding how everything ties to your behavior. What you experience, what you fail to experience, what you're forced to experience, what you would like to experience and can't experience yet, all that ties to our behavior. How do we relate with others? How do we relate with ourselves? Okay. All right, that is my introduction. Now let's get to meditation before time runs out. All right, get ready. And as Liz mentioned, I'm then going to go into, okay, this is the list of things you shouldn't do. This is a list of things that you must do. That's for babies, okay? You already know that. I'm not going to give you a list. All right, so get ready. Form the conscious intention that you're going to meditate. And once you form that intention to meditate, be aware of how your body is responding to that intention, biologically, energetically, how your thoughts are sort of beginning to arrange themselves, to align themselves, what thought seems to be coming to the forefront, what thought seems to be receding to the back. So pay attention to all these responses to that intention. I'm going to meditate. And notice a cooperative response coming from all these parts of you. So allow them to participate, allow them to cooperate. That intelligence in the body, when it tells you, oh, make a little touch adjustment here, sit like this, make sure your legs are like this. There's a little tension here, release it like that. Your shoulders, your back. Make sure you're comfortable, make sure you feel stable. And once you palpably touch stability and comfort in the body, then the breath will naturally follow. You will begin to feel a sense of stability and calming in the breath itself. Then be aware of that quality of calming and pleasantness in the breath. And because attention is directed towards the quality of stability, comfort, which connects to pleasantness, which connects to calming, then the mind itself, you start to have just as much as you have a palpable sense of those qualities present in the body, in the breath, you have a similar palpable knowing of these qualities present in the mind itself. And by merely directing attention to these qualities, it's like attention itself is like a bright light. It's an energizer. It amplifies. So feel the calm becoming calmer just by being aware of it. The pleasantness becoming more pleasant just by being aware of it in the breath, in the body, in the mind. And that gives us a sense of a confident sense of, okay, now I'm really ready to go as deeply as I can. And with that sense of confidence in the posture, in its comfort, in the breath, in the mind, then we make that full commitment to fully enter with our intention, with our motivation. And as a sort of physical way of symbolizing this commitment, you could take a deep breath. However you want, but make it conscious and make it deep, like in through the nose. And I usually hold the breath for a second or two, and then I release through the mouth. And as I release through the mouth, I feel it in the body. And let it go, let go, let go. And as you let go, deliberately let go, notice the calming, enhancing in the body, rejoice. Notice the calming, rejoice. Notice the calming, enhancing in the breath, rejoice. Notice the calming, enhancing in the mind. To some measure, even 0.01%, you're aware of it. Rejoice, rejoice, keep letting go, keep letting go. And you reach a certain bottom, you could say, the bottom of that breath. Be right before you breathe in again. Try to stay there. Let the breath come back by itself. Don't force it to come back. And try to stay where you've reached with the level of calm, with the level of pleasantness, with the level of calm. And lately, I've been sort of stabilizing this so that the mind can be very acquainted with I am now in the meditative state. I am really in the meditative state. So to sort of strengthen that, to make it a real conviction, you bring attention to the qualities of calming in the body, in the breath, and the mind, and you rejoice. The qualities of pleasantness, which is slowly evolving into joy, and you rejoice. And notice also in the mind, because the mind is freeing itself, it's becoming clearer, it's becoming brighter, more of its natural state, then images, sensations are arising on their own, vividly, crisply. So notice that, and then rejoice, knowing that, that's because of my mind's becoming clearer. That's because my mind is becoming brighter, more of its nature. And notice attention. The more you are familiar with the meditation, then you begin to notice attention, stability. What we seek in every teaching, in every gathering, is something that we already know deep within. That's how once it is spoken, a spark lights up within us. I say, that's it. How do we know that's it? How do we know that? There's a part of us, this innate wisdom that already knows. So connect with that. Call it your Buddha nature, your enlightened nature, your future enlightenment. Since the very achievement of enlightenment is beyond time and space, so it is possible you can make contact with your future enlightenment. And to help feel the sense of stability, the sense of the mind's natural capacity to focus, bring an awareness to the space in front of you at the level of your eyebrows, and imagine that presence to be very luminous, very bright in front of you in that space. And by merely bringing attention to that space, notice that there is a sensation arising in the forehead. So it could be many different reasons why that sensation is there, but ascribe a reason to it. It is because of the actual presence of my enlightened self, of my future enlightenment, for my Buddha potential that I'm actually sensing in a physical way. That's why I'm having this sensation. It is because I'm palpably experiencing how I'm able to direct and hold my attention. Ascribe it to all these things. And notice the sensation enhancing, becoming clearer, becoming more vivid. And rejoice. So our future enlightenment, it knows already. This is what you did on November 18, 2021, that resulted in this quality of your enlightenment. So it knows already your path. So open yourself to be guided, to be protected. Trust that protection, respect that guidance and protection, and be grateful to it. And all those intermediaries through which your enlightened self communicated to you, appearing as various teachers that we meet for a few moments, those who have spent years with us, those moments with strangers, with your friends. Honor all those. Be grateful to all of those in every expression of the teacher. Be respectful, trusting, and grateful. And we're going to do something connected to the teaching that we did last time on generosity. We're going to do a mandala offering. I think I promised that, but I didn't quite do it, or we did it, but not. Okay, we're going to do a mandala offering. So with that sense of great gratitude, with that sense of conviction, I am going to be enlightened. There's my future enlightenment. I can shorten the distance by what I do now, but definitely in the future, I will be enlightened. I will be free of the limitations that prevent me from caring in a skillful, practical way. I will have a heart fully open, infinite, filled with infinite love and compassion. My mind will be unobstructed to knowing, and whatever other qualities that will happen, and whatever it is that will help you achieve that. What can you give in exchange? What can you give as a show of gratitude? This is worth more than everything in the universe. Since the universe is the only thing that is, then imagine you have possession of the entire universe. In a sense, you do, because the universe you perceive is your what you perceive in your universe has a lot to do with your contribution. So imagine the entire universe and purify it, remove everything that is impure or unclean or you don't believe to be worthy of offering. So remove all those, transform them into only things that are worthy of offering. See a sky filled with all these beautiful things, whatever it is that you sincerely value. And not just material things, but also internal qualities. And it could be a combination of them, like a flower represents some internal quality, and see all kinds of flowers with 100 million petals of every single color in the spectrum. And you're holding all these things, the universe filled with them, and you're offering it to your highest expression, potential, your guru, the Lama, because you have truly, this is truly the one to whom you can be truly grateful. Sashi Bhagye Choshe Medo Tam Rira Lingshe Nyende Gyamban Sangye Shendo Mekte Uwayi drogu onanda shingla teponshu idamaguru ranamendagam niryataya. And feeling a great sense of readiness. Now I'm going to receive something about ethics that I can implement immediately that will trigger a realization within me. Be ready for that. And with that, bring that presence from space in front of you to the crown of your head, and then see it merge with your mind, descending through the crown and merging with your mind and your heart, and feel ready. Okay. Now you can open your eyes. It's not usually how we end my meditation, but you're used to that already. And also, sorry about the siren outside. I don't know if you heard it. Probably did, because it was so loud. Yeah. It's a good thing, this thing only picks up very close thing. So it must have been very loud if you heard it. Okay, so sorry about that. All right, so ethics. Remember, we are talking about the 6 perfections. So this is not any kind of ethics. This is the perfection of ethics. And what makes it the perfection of ethics? It is the application or the practice of ethics in a certain way that leads to its perfection, to its ultimate culmination, which is the perfection of ethics. So practicing it is practicing the perfection of ethics. And at the end, the goal that you can say you reach at the end, that is also the perfection of ethics. So you practice the perfection of ethics so that you can reach the perfected state of ethics. Okay. And that is when you are fully enlightened. Are you also hearing this one? My God, my goodness, this neighborhood is so hot tonight. All right. And before we go into deep into ethics, let's try to understand ethics. And I'm not going to present it to you in a scholastic way. You know, Nagarjuna said this, Chandrakirti said that, and then for you to memorize the definition, but rather in the definition that Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti and whatever Rinpoche may have said, let's try to get into the essence of what they were trying to say, what they're trying to say in describing ethics. And begin with, ethics is not, at least within the yogic tradition, and by yogic tradition, I'm including any tradition, whether it's Buddhist, whether it's whatever tradition, where they are sincerely going after something called transcendence, liberation, culmination of human values. So that's what I'm referring to as the yogic traditions, whether it's Taoism, whether it's Hindu, the Shiva traditions, or the whatever. Okay. So these are people who, you could say they are the term that Robert Thurman uses psychonauts. These are astronauts of the inner. These are beings who are not afraid, like you, who are not afraid to venture in the realm within, the psychic realm within, to know exactly what is nature, what is going on, what is reality, and be able to face it as it is. Okay. ethics is, first of all, behavior. It is behavior that is carried out with any one of our mode of expressions. It is behavior in terms of what we speak, how we speak it. It is behavior in the kind of thoughts that we allow to ruminate in our mind, the kind of thoughts that we entertain. Not just considering, is this true or this not true kind of consideration, but rather having formed a conviction and then letting the mind run on that, on that. That is, you're convinced that is the reality, and then you're letting your mind run on that. Okay, what kind of thoughts we allow, whether it's thoughts guided by fear, whether it's thoughts guided by aspiration, these are behaviors also. And also what we do with our bodies, how we interact physically in the world. Okay. So it's about those behavior. Every tradition that you can think of, especially within not just religious traditions, but philosophical traditions, even scientific traditions, they all recognize that from any one of these actions of speech, of body or mind, it is done with the intention of having a result. We are eliciting a result. Okay, so whatever it is that we do, whether we are fully aware of the implications involved, whether we are knowledgeable or not, whenever we act, whenever we think a certain, whenever we allow thoughts to go a certain way, whenever we speak a certain way, we do it with the intention, consciously or unconsciously, to have some sort of response, some sort of result, some sort of outcome from that. Okay. So all these traditions, all these religions, all these philosophies, they recognize that this is something that is known. Even animals who live in the animal realm, they know about this. Okay. Now, what makes the behavior ethical is, and this is very simple. It's not ethical because it pleases someone who is in authority. That's not what makes a behavior ethical. What makes a behavior ethical is that it is in alignment with the nature of reality. And because it is in alignment with the nature of reality, the result, the intended result is achieved. Okay? So when the intended result is achieved, then it is ethical. Now, we are talking about the ultimate or the end result. There are, of course, a cascading range of results, you could say, right? But what is the true end result of that action, of that activity? What is the true end result? And sometimes the appearances that come in between, they may appear to be completely opposite what's going to be the end result. Case in point, you do something, and as you're doing it, there seems to be pleasant experience, but the actual end result of that action is that it's not pleasant at all. Okay, so now that's something that we all understand. And unfortunately, that's where the confusion comes in. Where is the actual end result? Where is the actual end result? Some of us we have various degrees of, you could say, of what point do we say, oh, that's the end result. And that's where different philosophies come in, different religions come in, because they disagree on what is the real end result of that action, of that thinking, of that speaking, of that relating. What is the true end result? So when the true end result is in line with the nature of reality, so much so that the intended result is what is the end result, the ultimate end result is what is achieved, then the behavior is called skillful. That you are skillful at achieving the end result. Whether you are a human being or non-human being, if you are a mind haver, a sem chen, a mind possessor, a consciousness possessor, an awareness possessor. I'm not going to go into debate as to whether you possess the awareness or you awareness. I'm not going to go into that, do that, okay? That's not going to do anything for us. But rather, whatever experiences awareness in whatever level, the very nature of such a phenomena is that it wishes to fulfill its innate drive. They all have an innate drive. And that innate drive, you could say scientifically, is to arrive at equilibrium. And what is that equilibrium? Please never mind silly formulas. It is basically, simply put, and for those of you philosophers out there who can't stand that term, I'm very sorry, is to achieve contentment. Okay, contentment is achieving a kind of equilibrium. It is arriving at abiding in your natural state. Okay, so the only reason that we act right now is we are seeking to arrive at abiding in that natural state. And how do we know we are now abiding in that natural state? There is a certain joy that accompanies it. There is this spontaneous, unconstructed joy that accompanies it. That very joy, you could say, is the sign that tells you, oh, now you have achieved it. Okay. Then the experiencing the opposite of that, you could say, is arriving at a place where we are not abiding in our natural state. The non-abiding of a natural state are the various levels of pain and suffering. The natural abiding and the abiding in the natural state, that itself you experience as joy. We say joy itself is the natural outcome. It's not a reward for achieving it, but rather it is that achievement itself. It's like you have a room filled with things, and you remove the things that are in the room. What are you left with? You're left with space. The space that is there is not something that you, after you remove everything, then you put the space in, and now you have space. The space is what's left. So when we remove everything that is not in alignment with our natural state, when we remove everything that is not in alignment with natural state, we arrive, the experience of that is this blissful experience. And this blissful experience that I'm saying it, and the only way for us to understand it, it is not the kind of bliss that you can think of, that you're thinking about. The kind of bliss that we're thinking about is a conceptual bliss. This is a non-conceptual bliss. And the word bliss itself is the only thing that we can use to sort of approximate the experience. But it is something beyond bliss even, okay? So the behavior, the actions of body, speech, and mind that we do, that eventually allows us to arrive at this place, those activities are called skillful, because that's what we are sincerely, innately, that's what we are striving to get to. It's like what the Buddha said in the Paramita Sutra, even the cows are looking for nirvana. Okay, nirvana is abiding in a natural state. Okay, and however you want to conceptualize that, that's up to you. As long as you understand that is a state where, oh, okay, no more striving. Okay, not that no more work. I don't know what that is. Work is probably a different thing. If you love to work, I don't want nirvana because I love working in nirvana. You don't work. Okay, nirvana is, if you love to work, nirvana, you're working all the time. If you don't like to work, nirvana is you don't have to work anymore. Okay. So don't let our concepts of what this could be prevent us from approaching it. Okay. All right. So this skillful way of behaving, where the true end result is attained, that path, that way of thinking, that way of acting, that way of speaking is called ethical. That's what is referred to as ethical. Okay. Now, you could say there are different aims. There are different kind of spiritual aims we can have. And because of these different spiritual aims that we have, then there are different levels of a skillful ways of being, skillful ways of speaking, skillful ways of thinking, skillful ways of acting. And there are certain things where they overlap, and there are certain places where there are certain attributes, certain behaviors that are unique to some of these paths that leads to certain results. But if the ultimate aim is what is called the eka, what's that called? Ekapad, the one path, the one path. If the one path is eventually everyone achieving complete enlightenment, and I know some of you esotericists, especially Western esotericists, can't stand that term, some finite state of enlightenment, okay? Even if there is things beyond, but first we have to get to that one first. Then we can worry about what's beyond it, okay? If there's something beyond it, then we'll know. But until we get there, all we can do is speculate. But all we can do is, it's like, if you're standing in one place, your vision can only, you can only see for a certain distance. And exactly what's beyond the distance of what you're able to perceive, all those are just speculations, okay? And how do you know what's beyond that? You move in that direction, then you can say, oh, look at that, there are things beyond it. But you have to get there first to know what's beyond it. So that's just for those esotericists. I have to talk to you a little bit. Okay, all right, so even though I mentioned 3 different kinds of spiritual goals, but in a way there is one spiritual goal where every being comes to abide in the natural state. Okay. And however you want to define that, what that means. Okay, it's up to, there's no restrictions here about how you want to personally define that. Okay, so what is ethical? What is ethics? That which will lead to the ultimate aim. The behavior that leads to the ultimate aim. Now the thing is, we are always behaving. Even right now, as you're listening, you're behaving. There's a certain way that you're hearing it. There's a certain way that we are processing it. Certain thoughts that comes up. Okay. Since we are always behaving, that means we are always experiencing results of our actions. There's no getting away from that. Since there is no getting away from that, since there is always this innate, uncontrollable, spontaneous drive to arrive at some sense of contentment, we cannot, some people wish to do that. Some people actually believe that the ultimate aim is something similar to what I'm about to say, where okay, I don't want to participate anymore. This thing about acting and then receiving the results of your action. Okay, I don't want that anymore. No one can do that. No one. If you are a being, if you have consciousness, if you have awareness to whatever level, to whatever degree, then there will always be results, then you will always be acting, there will always be behavior. It is inescapable. Since behaving is inescapable, and since there are definite experiences that are results of these behaviors, then we better learn how to behave skillfully. Learn how to behave skillfully. And the golden rule that sort of, I mean, there's a golden rule and there are permutations of the golden rule. And the golden rule works because of the nature of reality. Somehow, this appearance of separateness is not the absolute reality. It's not the true nature of things. It is an appearance, but it is not the actual state of being, the finite state of being of things. Because there is connection. There's always connection on some level or another. The fact that you can see me, the fact that I can see you, that is because of a connection. Whether it is not that, you're touching my hands kind of connection. There's waves emanating from me, somehow going towards you, and it's making connection to you. Even at that level, that very, very, very gross level, we have to admit there is connection. And because of connection, that means we are such that we affect each other. And it's not entire, and it's not, things are not finite, where there is this specific way for me to act that will create this specific reaction from you. There are certain potentials within you that if I behave a certain way, will create a certain reaction from you. But you must have that potential, and I must behave in that particular way. Okay. And that's where the relativity of exactly what needs to be done comes in. And that's why there are these levels of ethics. The foundation is do not harm. Do not harm. Wherever you see through your experience a self, never mind what's the ultimate nature of that self, but whenever there is an experience, there's a self here interacting with a self there. Wherever you see a self, whether it is appearing in front of you as an other self, or whether it is the self that is somehow connected to you subjectively, which is called myself. And never mind whether one really exists or the other doesn't really exist, never mind those kind of things. The thing is, at the level of right here, right now, there is experience of self. I'm in a cave by myself. I'm by myself. I'm interacting in the world. I'm walking the street. There are other selves walking around. Okay, the ultimate nature. That's not what we are focusing on at the moment. But whenever there is that experience, that is my reality right now. There's a self here. There's a self there. Wherever there is a self, do not harm that self. That's the basis of behavior. Harming, that is doing something with the intention that a self will experience suffering, discomfort. Okay? That's what we're talking about. Not that while you're walking backwards and then you step on somebody's toe, that kind of thing. Or you make an act of generosity to someone, and yet this act of generosity ends up harming, the person is harmed by it because, I don't know, the person was allergic to that thing or something. We're not talking about that kind of harming. We're talking about the harming where your intention was to cause, I see self, and I want that self to experience suffering. And then we act. And we could act unskillfully in a sense of the person is so beyond us that they're not harmed by it. But the intention to harm and then acting out of that intention creates the potential already. It's like what we are saying is self must be harmed. And with that conviction, since we are connected, and whatever that means, we are connected, but it's something, some reality, the field of reality is affected by that intention. Oh, Ronnie believes self must be harmed. Okay, let's fulfill Ronnie's wish. Make sure the self that she has experiences harm. Okay, because that's what she wants. She believes that self must be harmed. Okay, so that's kind of a metaphysical way of explaining it. Okay, it's not that we throw a boomerang and it comes back at us. It's not that simple. Okay, it's not that. That is explained in a way to help people who cannot understand the more profound reason for behaving in a way that is referred to as ethical. So for them, since they are children, you say, oh, actually your actions are like boomerangs. Eventually they come back at you. Okay, but that's not real ethics. Okay, that's not real fundamental reason for ethics. The fundamental reason for ethics is that our very nature demands that we behave a certain way so that we are always in alignment with that nature. And because that nature is itself pure potential, because that nature itself is freedom itself, so we have the perception of going against our nature. Because of that very freedom that is an aspect of our nature, we have the openness, we have the freedom to even harm ourselves. And no force in the universe can stop it. So just like there's no force in the universe to stop us when we are determined to harm ourselves, and we will harm ourselves, or when we are determined to be free, no force in the universe can stop us from achieving freedom neither. When we are determined, I'm sick with this childish thing of doing things unskillfully. Whenever we do something and the end goal is something that is totally unwanted, we behaved in an unskillful way. There's not a being in the universe, even people that you can call masochists, okay? Even those kinds of people. There's no one who wants to experience an experience where I say, oh, I don't want this experience. And I'm stating it this way because you could say, oh, there are masochists who love pain. They love it, okay? So they do something to achieve pain, and that's for them, this is what I wanted. This is not something that I do not want. I'm not experiencing something that's unwanted, I'm experiencing something that's wanted. So I'm saying to experience something where as you're experiencing it, there is, oh, I don't want this experience. To arrive at this kind of experience meant we went against our nature. We acted against our nature. We were not in alignment with nature. Because of that, we were not in alignment with nature. We spoke, we acted, we did something, and now this is a result of it. And some people, and sometimes myself, I'm a bit suspicious. I'm a bit hesitant to give a hard, fast understanding of karma, where, oh yeah, you do this and then you get this result. I mean, this list of things that we read in the scriptures, you do this, you get that, you do this, you get that, you do this, you get that, you do this. All these are guidelines. They're not fast rules that in every situation for every kind of being, when you do that kind of thing, you get that kind of result. That's not our lived experience. Okay? All these are guidelines. All these are guidelines. So the thing is to be in alignment with the intention to be skillful. For an example would be, the only thing I can think about is some sort of political aim. You have a political aim, right? A certain rights is being abused, and you want something to happen so that that right is no longer abused, right? Now, what is your real aim? Is the real aim to see the implementation of some kind of regulation where that right is no longer abused? Or is the aim to shout, that right is not abused, that right is abused? If just that becomes the aim, then you're being unskillful. They become, and a lot of times we become attached to the means. We forget the true aim of what we are seeking. And we undermine our own aim. We, in a sense, end up doing the very thing that prevents us from experiencing the thing that we wanted to experience. I want to see that right no longer being abused, but I'm so attached to shouting that even when shouting is no longer the means to do it, I'm attached to shouting. I want shouting to be the thing that results in the rights no longer being abused. Yes, perhaps in the series of implementations of things, there was a time when shouting was the skillful thing to do. But since the nature of reality is in constant flux, it's not static, then we have to also be in alignment with, oh, now shouting is not the skillful things that will bring me the result that I want. And if you really want that result, then you will adapt so you can get to that result. And what sometimes happens, we become so attached to the method that we're using, the method itself becomes the end result. And then since we started this with some other aim, we end up being miserable because a part of us is unfulfilled. Yes, you shouted nicely and everyone heard you and everyone said, oh my God, that person knows how to shout nicely. But what you really wanted, you didn't get it, okay? So that's what I'm talking about, being unskillful. Sometimes what the action that was successful yesterday may not be the action that is needed today to achieve the same result, because things are in flux. Things are always changing, you know, the impermanence thing. Okay. So for the Bodhisattva to be skillful, that is, for the Bodhisattva to have the perfection of ethics, the Bodhisattva must be flexible. And not flexible in a sense of, well, I guess it's okay if I kill somebody today. I'm being flexible. It's okay, you can harm people sometime. You know, you gotta be flexible. You gotta stop being so rigid about that. No, that's not what it means to be flexible. Okay. And flexible means don't be attached to the method, but keep the aim always in mind. And whatever the aim is, it is an attempt at arriving at resting at our natural state. All right. And because of that, because of the relativity of ethics, there are some guidelines. Because if it was so straightforward, there wouldn't be 1,000 religions, there wouldn't be 1,000 philosophies, or should I say millions of philosophies, millions of religions, millions of approach government, approach economic approach. There wouldn't be so many. It's because it is not so clear cut. And the reason that it's not so clear cut is many millions of those, they are attached to the method. It worked for John 2 trillion years ago. So that's why we have to do it, because it worked for John 2 trillion years ago. So I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I'm exaggerating on purpose. Okay. It worked way back then. That's why we have to keep doing it. You have to keep doing it exactly that way. Okay. That's how we are ethical, by continuing to do it exactly the way they did it. It may have, the first time it was implemented, it may have been the skillful thing to do. And the reason that it was the skillful thing to do, because the people back then were in alignment with the nature of reality. They were in alignment with flux. They decided to change something. That's why it's not from infinite past, but only 2 trillion years ago. Okay. Because since it only happened 2 trillion years ago, that means at some point somebody made a change. Somebody said, oh, this is not the way to achieve this. Let's bring this. And other people observing, oh, that worked. Raising your toes cures cancer. And then people say, oh, raising your toes, that's what cures cancer. And then 2 trillion, and then now, and then some people keep saying, the reason that you have cancer is because you didn't raise your toes. It didn't work, keep raising your toes. Eventually, your cancer will be gone because it worked for John 2 trillion years ago. That's not what it means to be ethical. There's a beautiful sutra, a Mahayana sutra on the ethics of the Bodhisattva. It is in the ornament of, it's part of a collection of sutras called the, what's it called again? The Great Ornament Sutra, okay? And in there, there's a specific chapter where the Buddha is describing the Bodhisattva's perfection of ethics. And in all the different sutras where the Buddha is talking about ethics, okay, avoid harming, and like what? What's harming? You know, like killing somebody, that will be harming. Oh, okay, all right. What else? You know, taking somebody's property away from them, you know, that would be harming. No, don't do that. Okay. And there's a list of don't. And the reason for the list of don't, that is a kind of, we are training a capacity of our enlightenment when we are practicing restraining. And there is so much power in practicing restraining. Now it's like lifting weights, okay? And that you're doing some sort of resistance, okay? There's a resistance, and you're fighting that resistance. So when we are practicing restraining, I will not do this consciously, and it's a state of mind that we have. I will not do this. I will not do that. When we are practicing this, we are strengthening an enlightened capacity within us. What we are actually doing by doing that, we are practicing the enlightened capacity of effortlessness. Oh my goodness, do you hear that? By practicing restraint, we are developing the capacity of effortlessness. We are aligning ourselves, just like when we're doing the practice of generosity, we were aligning ourselves with abundance. Here, we are aligning ourselves with effortlessness. Okay. And also, the very practice of ethics, the very practice of restraint is also a purification. The reason that we are not enlightened is because we are actively doing things that keeps us from being enlightened. So when we are restraining ourselves, we are holding ourselves back from doing those things that is keeping us from achieving enlightenment. And this very practice is actually removing clutter. When we are practicing restraint, when we are practicing ethics, we are actually removing clutter. And by removing the clutter, we remove the clutter, especially the clutter of dysfunctional guilt. And dysfunctional guilt occupies a lot of space in our consciousness. And when we practice ethics, we remove that. And then that space is now available. And because of the availability of that space, we are now effortlessness. We are connected to effortlessness. And also, we are regaining consciousness's capacity or attention's capacity to be stable. Okay, consciousness capacity to be stable. In other words, the ability to focus. It comes natural when we are practicing this reason because we are exercising the muscle of attention. I'm attending to not do that. I'm attending to not do that. I'm holding myself from doing that. Even though it's something that is naturally you may not necessarily do, but the intention to restrain itself, that intention itself is that exercise. And this is where I think it gets a bit interesting. So I mentioned the sutra. In the sutra where the Buddha is talking about the ethics of the Bodhisattva, he mentions something that is very, very unusual. Unusual in the sense that it's usually a list of don't do this, don't do that. But rather the Buddha is saying what makes the perfection of the Bodhisattva, what makes the ethics of the Bodhisattva perfect is that it is always in alignment with bodhicitta. It is always in alignment with compassion, measureless compassion and measureless love. So how do you know what is the skillful thing to do? Is it in alignment with compassion? As far as you can muster compassion. Is it in alignment with love as much as you can muster love? If it is in alignment with those two, then most definitely it is the most skillful thing to do. Even though the immediate appearance of acting that way or thinking that way or speaking that way may seem to be getting the opposite of what you want. Right? But when it is in alignment with compassion and with love, then it is the skillful thing to do. And the reason I'm saying that is a lot of times we act out of compassion, we act out of love, and it seems like we get the opposite. So have the conviction, if I acted out of compassion, if I acted out of love, then it was the most skillful thing to do. It was the most appropriate thing to do. I may not see the true end result of it now, but I know the true end result of it is not going to be something that harms any self, whether it's self here or self there. The true end result of it. Okay? Like a parent who is disciplining a child. It may be painful for the child to experience, and it's also painful for the parent to witness the child experiencing the difficulty, the pain, but the parent knows the true end result of it is not the pain. The true end result of it is something that will benefit the child. Okay, so that is a skillful thing to do, because the parent, out of compassion for the child, had to do that, because the vision of compassion is broad and vast. It sees beyond the immediate. So in alignment with compassion, in alignment with love, that's what you ask yourself. And there's a series of self-reflection for us to do to know that whether or not, if what I'm doing is ethical in this scientific way of understanding ethics, not this, are you upsetting some authority or not kind of ethics, but is this an action that is skillful because it is in alignment with the nature of reality? What self-reflection can I do? What is my intention? Do I know my intention? And is there some sort of self-serving finite in this intention? Okay. Is there a harming of a self in this intention? So this kind of self-reflection will help us determine, whether the action is the action that should be engaged in or an action that we should be refrained from. Okay, because going back to all those religions, all those philosophies, they're all presenting volumes of, okay, this is the behavior that you must have. This is the behavior that is ethical. And there are a lot of places where these kinds of suggestions meet, and there are a lot of places where they are unique. And there are some of them, you could say, because of a certain training, this sets of behavior or these sets of restraints is relatively ethical for that person, for those people, but not necessarily ethical for someone else. Case in point, there are certain restraints that you must practice at a certain level of spirituality that you must let go of at a different level of spirituality. When you're at the level where you're supposed to restrain, not restraining is unethical. Restraining is ethical. And when you're at a different level of spirituality, and the situation for you demand not to restrain, and you restrain, you're being unethical. Okay? Now, this is not an excuse to dispense with things that we just don't want to do and then things that we want to do. But we have to be honest with at what level am I? And the level that I'm in, this is the skillful thing to do. That is, this is the thing that I must do or not do that will actually help me get to the goal that I want to get to. Right? And because it is skillful now at this level, and later on, it's not the skillful thing to do. Like, yelling, shouting at someone. Because of our habits of behavior, when we yell, when we shout, it's usually done out of some sort of affliction. And because it is done out of an affliction, that is an unskillful way of thinking, unskillful intention that ends up harming ourselves and everybody else. That's what an affliction is. A behavior, a way of acting, an intention, a motivation to do something that takes us away from our true nature, from abiding of our true nature. It takes us away from that. Okay? That's what an affliction is. So when we are afflicted because of habit, and we shout, that becomes an unskillful thing. Now, once we've gone beyond that in your spirituality, where you're no longer affected by that affliction, and a situation comes up like that, like if you were that political activist, and it demands for you to shout, and you don't shout, you're being unethical. Okay? When the situation demands that you are to be harsh and wrathful, and you restrain from being wrathful and harsh, you're being unethical at that level of spirituality. But when you're not at that level of spirituality, when you're being tossed around like a plaything by your afflictions, you have no control over your afflictions whatsoever. They own you. You don't own them. Then, no matter what, don't engage in activities that only inflames your afflictions, because the end result is it harms you and it harms others. That's the end. That's what makes it unskillful. Of course, as you are traveling from one level to another, you're not quite yet at the other level, but you're not quite yet at the previous level. Then there are times where you're supposed to, okay, now my afflictions are greater than being under control of my affliction is greater than me being free from my afflictions. So I should restrain. Because it seems like if I yell at this person, I will get a point across, but I'm gonna say it with anger, or when I'm gonna say it with affliction, then the end result is that the person is going to, what is it that is going to be really communicated to the person? It's not the truth of what I'm shouting, but rather I'm just spitting affliction at this person. And that's what the person is going to receive, the affliction, being hit by afflictions. And the person will naturally respond with their own barrage of afflictions. Okay. But when you are shouting, not from a place of affliction, but from a place of seeing that this is according to compassion, according to love, according to the nature of things, this feels mostly the thing that will get the job done. And you're not attached to yelling. If in the very midst of yelling, you notice that a change is taking place and you're still attached to your yelling, then it's no longer skillful. You've lost that. But if in the midst of it, you notice that, oh, I don't need to yell anymore. And since you're not attached to yelling, now you're speaking normally, then you're practicing ethics, the perfection of ethics. Okay. So it is not what's that same thing? It's not a fixed thing where someone can tell you, okay, these are the list of things that you must do. These are the things that you must not do. That list is only a guideline. You must take it as a guideline. There are situations where you must not do those things. There are situations you must do those things. But you have to be open, because there are situations where restraining is the unethical. Like you see someone suffering, or you see an injustice, and say, oh, I'm not supposed to be shouting, because shouting is an unethical thing. But if shouting is the thing that will help stop the injustice, not shouting is unethical. Okay. I've really gone over now. So I didn't. As I promised, I didn't list a bunch of things. I mean, you already have that list: 250 this, 500 that. Avoid this. 1,000 list of 1,000 things to avoid. Okay, so I didn't go into those things, but rather whatever that list is, understand the essence of it, and that's what the Buddha was saying in that ethic sutra on ethics for the Bodhisattva. The Bodhisattva is practicing ethics when the Bodhisattva is acting from essence, not from list of avoiding this and then doing that. Rather going to what is the essence of avoiding this here? What is the essence of engaging in this here? And staying in alignment with the essence. And that's being ethical. And be very, as you are practicing ethics, of course, you have to get used to avoiding, okay, avoiding. Okay, I say I'm gonna do this at 5 o'clock in the morning. Do it at 5 o'clock in the morning. That's practicing, that's strengthening your muscle. Okay, and there was a point where doing at 5 o'clock is, you're beyond that now. You no longer have to do it at 5 o'clock. Okay, then be ready to make that change. But in the meantime, have a list of, I mustn't do this, I mustn't do that. What is the intention behind what I'm doing? Is it in alignment with compassion? Is it in alignment with love? Is it in alignment with nature of reality? And sometimes compassion moves us to act, and fear comes and then we restrain from acting. And we find ourselves completely powerless by the fear, then we have to acknowledge it. I know this is the right thing to do, but for some reason, I lack the power, the energy to be able to do it. Should I say some classical things? The ethics of avoiding, the ethics of doing things to benefit others, and the ethics of being an example. You can sort of summarize it like that. That is, behave in such a way that it avoids harming. Behave in such a way that you inspire. Behave in such a way where your intention is to benefit. You may not end up benefiting because we are babies, we are just learning, taking steps. So we learn from it, okay? It's not so much this action doesn't work, but rather I should realign myself. I should be more in attunement so that I know what exactly to do. It's not that I will never give a poor person $5 anymore, because that's what happened, that we are losing it then. The thing is to be in such alignment, this person, give him $1 is not helpful to them. This person, give him $1 would be helpful to them. Being in alignment with that is practicing the perfection of ethics, and understand how there is an underlying connection. Exactly how this connection is supposed to be, it is beyond concept. Just say that. Okay. You can have beautiful concepts to describe it. Just know that it's just a beautiful conceptual way of framing it, and it's not exactly the way of how it is. All right. I think I've said enough, because definitely we're out of time. And I hope I said something that is, you say, okay, I'm going to start implementing this now. I didn't give you a list of things to do, but and things to avoid. But I hope you get the gist of it, because we're talking about the perfection of ethics, not baby ethics, ethics for babies. Don't harm people. Don't take away their stuff. Okay. That's for babies. You're not babies anymore. You have to approach ethics from a more profound way. Okay. All right. Any questions? Questiones?
Una demanda. I have a
What?
question. You were saying it in all the languages, so I had to say it in Italian.
I knew I forgot the language. Yeah.
Thank you so much for teaching, Phuntsok.
Thank you.
You mentioned dysfunctional guilt,
Mm-hmm.
and you talked about how when we practice ethics, it specifically works to remove dysfunctional guilt.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if you could just speak a little bit more on that, of like how that is, or why that is, like, so specifically one of the things that can be removed with it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Immediately, I'm going to go into well, there are many sutras where the Buddha is describing how does one achieve shine, how does one achieve shamatha, complete quietude of quietude. And in the very beginning, the very beginning practice in order to achieve shamatha is practicing ethics. And why is ethics necessary, preliminary to being able to achieve shamatha? Is because of what ethics is doing to your mind. And the reason that we are not right here, right now, experiencing shamatha is because we have the what is actively preventing us from experiencing shamatha present. And one of the things that is present, that is doing a very good job as making sure that we get distracted, making sure we don't experience natural peace, is what is referred, sometimes translated as remorse or dysfunctional guilt. It is because there's an awareness. I acted in a way where the end result is not something that I wanted. And the natural tendency is not to do that again, but this natural tendency not to do that again becomes exaggerated. It gets overblown. It becomes so much the focus that we forget the reason why of that intention. Yes, that the intention not to do this again should be present, but it shouldn't overwhelm our mind, where it actually prevents us from acting. So it just takes a whole chunk of space in our mind, our consciousness, and because it is worry it is induces anxiety and all those kinds of things. It prevents the mind from having peace. Okay, so dysfunctional guilt is holding on to regret for too long, much longer than we're supposed to. Either we are justified to have regret, but not letting it go. So being attached to regret. And unfortunately, on the path of virtue, of being virtue, or doing what is skillful, I'm going to call it that, right? We are so concerned about not doing things non-virtuously, that concern becomes exaggerated, that we believe there's a sense that I must punish myself for having done that. And we constantly punishing ourselves. That's what the dysfunctional guilt does. It's constantly punishing ourselves for something that was done. And sometimes the guilt may have been summoned erroneously. That is, we had no reason for regret, but we brought up the regret anyway, and not really reflecting to see that, is the regret necessary here? Does it serve a function here? We didn't fully examine that. We didn't fully examine the necessity of regret there, but we invited it anyway. Okay, so whether it's unnecessary regret or regret that was supposed to be to truly fulfill a function, but we hold on to it. We keep on holding on to it. So when we do something that, I should not have done that, that knowledge, I should not have done that, should be it. Okay, I see the end result of that, and that is an unwanted end result, so I will not do that. And that regret is a kind of sort of like closing the door to doing that in the future. And once you seal that door from doing that in the future, that's what the regret does for us. But we can't just stay there and keep stopping it and not doing other things. So dysfunctional regret is in a way, that's what it is. It is being attached to regret. Okay, and this attachment to regret causes us not to be able to experience natural peace. It clutters the mind. Because it clutters the mind is not able to experience shamatha. And that's why in the very beginning, as a preliminary to be able to achieve shamatha, we have to be very strict about ethics. And that's that's the thing that it gets rid of by being ethical. Basically, we don't have any remorses. We are free of remorse. Okay. All right. Since tonight I'm back to original time, so none of that to extend this original time any further. So I think I'll end it here. And if you have any questions, you can always ask questions via email. Okay. Right. So I think we'll we'll come to a close. Put a close. Okay. I understand that this is a very brief summary of ethics. It goes into so many different ways of profundity. What Jason Kappa said, what's it, Jason Kappa? Well, in a commentary describing the perfection of ethics, it described ethics as, this is how you begin, that's the foundation of the path. It is what you're doing while you are on the path. You're constantly refining how you relate with yourself, how you relate with others, how you relate with reality, constantly refining it, making more and more and more in line with reality, more in line with compassion, more in line with love, more in line with bodhicitta, making it more and more and more in line, more in line, more in line. And then eventually at the very end of it, then you say, now you're spontaneous. You achieve the state of spontaneous ethics, where everything you do, everything you say, everything you think is in alignment with nature. It's in alignment with compassion. Then you have achieved the perfection of ethics, where you relate perfectly. So in the beginning, you struggle with relating. In the middle, you refine your relating, so that at the end, you relate only in the most perfect way. That's what Jason Kappa said. Paraphrasing. Okay, now this is really ending. That's it. I have nothing else to say. Now let's meditate. So send the notification. Hey, aggregates of mind, let's meditate. And be aware of your aggregates responding. Oh, we're gonna meditate. Right. Body like this, breath like this, mind like this. A wonderful way of getting into meditation real fast is to let your mind go into the memory of what it felt like when you were in your deepest meditation. And as you're remembering it, you begin to re-experience it in the body. You begin to re-experience it in the breath and the mind. Not exactly the way, but you begin to touch it faster than before. And you just allow it to take place. And once you feel a definite stability of touching that, then take that deep breath, if you want, in through the nose. And as you breathe out the mouth, let go. And find yourself abiding in some measure, some level in a meditative state. Rejoice. And go back to the light in your heart, the presence of your enlightened self, enlightened potential, future enlightenment, knowing that it's guiding you, it's protecting you. See us sitting in a circle. And in that circle, in the center of that circle, our enlightened potential's presence combine into an us. And we feel a light connecting, a light ray connecting our hearts with that center. Then the sense of us begins to melt from being very localized to expanding. So it's no longer just us, me, my body, my hands, which is us, but the group is us. I feel the same spontaneous urge to go help someone over there that my right hand would feel for my left hand, without any sense of separation of a self. And this sense is appearing as this bright presence in front of us, expanding absorbing everything into its luminous nature, until the entire universe, the entire earth is just this bright us. And in the midst of that, we feel the same spontaneous urge that left hand feels for the right. We feel it for the ocean, for the rivers, for the mountain, for our neighbors, for the Republicans, as well as the Democrats, for the liberals, our pets, for all creation. We feel this is us. And we are so infused with this realization that we don't need this outer appearance of a ball of light engulfing everything. We can still have that sense while respecting individuality. So the big ball of presence begins to shrink. And as it shrinks, it leaves like a residue of light on everything that it merged with. Until again, it appears in the very center of our circle. Consider whatever gifts your teacher, your inner teacher may have given you to this talk, and wish to share that gift. Make a dedication. Kyo di kyo gun, Sönam yeshe tsokzo shu, Sönam yeshe lechungwe, Damba kunye to parasho. And that light presence again removes that appearance because we no longer need it. And it goes back into our hearts. And we are convinced when I help this self, I help all of us. When I help all of us, I help this self. And get ready to come out of the meditation. Be aware of being in the meditative state, rejoice, and make the intention to arise with a nice deep breath that you feel in here. And deliberately, consciously reconnect with your immediate surroundings through your sense of touch, sense of hearing, and sense of sight.